Good afternoon. My name is Richard Kraneis, and today I'd like to give you some advice on how to pass the ITIL V3 test. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Richard Kraneis, and I am a business analyst, project manager, and SharePoint evangelist in Chicago, Illinois, USA. I am a trainer of 10,000 in the classroom, but all that matters today is how well I train you, and hopefully that you have a good time. There'll be more information about me at the end of this video. So, what are we learning today? We're learning a method for passing the ITIL V3 test, just as I did today. And my methodology is you need a book. You need a book. You really should have classroom training. I'll give you some advice on the ITIL V3 brain dump, something that you can write down. I thoroughly recommend that you use self-test software by Kaplan. I think it's a good idea. And I can show you what I did in building my PowerPoint quizzes. And then also something about what your test day at Prometric will be like when you pass the test. So, first of all, I do recommend that you buy the book, Passing Your ITIL Foundation Exam, and you can purchase it easily on Amazon. So if you're going to do this, might as well buy the book that actually is made by, it is the official publisher for ITIL, and you can see it right here, Passing Your ITIL Foundation Exam. It's a bit costly, it seems costly to me. You can buy it brand new for 40 bucks, you can buy it used for 30 bucks, but it's an investment. It's an investment in your career. So you definitely want to get it straight from, the ITIL folks in terms of what they think you need to pass. It also comes with some test questions, and as I look at it next to me, I'd say there's about 200 pages. That's exactly right. So I recommend that you get that. Returning to this, so you buy the book, and I do recommend classroom training. So as for myself, do you really need 3 days of classroom training? Well, that's up to you. I think there's some advantages to it. I chose Microtrain of Chicago, Illinois for my classroom training, and I'm glad I did. I had a wonderful instructor. Let's just say that her name starts with the letter D. Thanks, D. One advantage of the class is that you get a sense of camaraderie, and I think that's really a great word. That my classmates and I have stayed in contact on our journey to passing the ITIL V3 test. There were 5 of us that began this about 16 days ago, and so far 3 of us have actually passed it. So I think classroom training is a good thing from a professional trainer. So in the process of doing all this, in learning the ITIL V3, you will need to, I really recommend you need to memorize the processes. And this is actually a slide made by Microtrain, but it actually came through their training group. They have many slides. They have approximately 200, so I'm not going to show you those. That belongs to them. But I think this one's fairly generic, and what it indicates is that you have to memorize. You don't have to. Really, you don't have to. But for me, I memorized service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continuous service improvement. And when I actually went to my test, for 6 minutes, I literally wrote this down by memory. I taught it to myself in 16 days or less. And if it helps you at all, you can remember that this is SDT, and this is O and C. So there are 5 of these, 8 of these, 7 of these, 5 of these, and over here 54. I should do that again. There are 5 of these, 8 of these, 7 of these, 5 of these, 4 of these, and 3 of these processes. But for each one, you need to know what is involved. You need to know different parts. For example, right here, continuous service improvements, there are 7 steps to it. It's a good idea to know them. So this is just the beginning. You should be able to do this, be able to write it down so you can use it on your test. It's really a great idea. Now, I recommend that you use Kaplan self-test software, and this is a method that Microtrain also uses, Microtrain of Chicago. So you need to go to selftestsoftware.com. You need to pay for this service. I believe that it was incredibly useful. You can both learn and simulate the test environment, and I used my mistakes that I made as a jumping off way to improve my test taking skills. Now over at selftestsoftware.com you have both learning mode and certification mode. Let's take a brief journey over there. Here I already have logged in, and you can see that you have learning mode and certification mode. I don't think that Kaplan would enjoy it if I went through all of their questions, but I don't think they'd mind if I promote their service by just going into learning mode. And let's say that I want 50 questions. What I actually did is I focused on each one of these groups, mastering each one as best I could. But for now, let's just say that we want to go with 50 randomly selected items, and we start the test. And so you can see what it looks like. And this is very much what the actual test looks like. You'll have a question, you'll have, 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these things to highlight, and then you proceed to next. And once again, I'm in learn mode in this. And learning mode is how you learn the questions. You're teaching yourself material by learning questions. And you actually have certification mode, where you literally have to do 40 questions in 60 minutes or less. They also have flashcards. I will admit that I didn't use these much at all in this whole process, but I spent a whole lot of time with learning mode, and I used certification mode again and again, approximately half a dozen times before I achieved my first over 90% grade. And then once you have hit over 90% in certification mode under pretty much test circumstances, you are fairly assured that you'll do decently on the test, but there is no guarantee. So returning back to this, that's a bit of Kaplan self-test software. And I also used PowerPoint quizzes. Once I found out what my mistakes were, I started building quizzes for myself. You could have used anything, Word, or probably just Word or PowerPoint. I used PowerPoint. And I built a dozen of these ITIL V3 quizzes for myself. And here's an example of one of those quizzes. So I already have it open, and I'll go into PowerPoint, and I'll just say that I want this one. So this is not all the answers, but what I would do is I would just print this out in outline mode. So I would do a file and a print like this, and I would say that I just want to have the outline view, and I would preview it, and just so you can see it. So I started going around with pieces of paper that looked like this, answering questions for myself. And if I needed an actual review of it, I could certainly go into this, where I actually had a question. So over here corresponds to this. So I'd have a question, and I could literally look at the answer that was provided by Kaplan. So I think that's a very good methodology. I basically not only read the book, but taught myself the correct answers, which seemed a bit odd, but it certainly worked. So let's return over to here, how to pass the ITIL. So I used PowerPoint quizzes, and I absolutely had about a dozen of these. And last night, before passing the test, I went to a restaurant, a Mexican restaurant in my neighborhood. My wife had a shindig at our house for ladies only, so I went to a Mexican restaurant and I read all of my quizzes over a nice dinner. So, finishing this up, test day at Prometric. Well, I use Prometric. I don't know if there's any other source, so I just went through www.prometric.com. You have to reserve your seat at the Prometric Testing Center. You have to go with your driver's license and one other identification, such as a credit card. And have you been to an airport lately? It's pretty much very much the same thing, except, well, at the airport they ask you to take everything out of your pockets. It was pretty much like, going through traveling, via the airlines. Had to empty my pockets, could not walk into the classroom with anything at all. I couldn't even walk in with the tissues I had brought that day for my runny nose. They actually gave me tissues instead. What they definitely did give me were 2 laminated pieces of paper, not quite the right phrase, and 2 markers, and that was for my brain dump. So I could just write down things that I needed for the test. They gave me 15 minutes to acclimate to the test, and I did my brain dump before that period. I don't know if that's what they really had in mind. I just asked them if I could do it before the 15 minutes, and they said yes, so I did. Although I think if ever you've taken a Prometric test, I don't think you need all 15 minutes, so it's quite possible you might need 2 or 3, and then you could just do the brain dump during that period. And for 60 minutes I worked on the test, and I went to the test with a clear belief that I had studied as much as I could, that I had an excellent teacher, that I had prepped myself and worked hard at it. I was not underprepared. I knew that I had passed over 90% on several certification mode tests, and I went in with the belief that I would enjoy the questions and not rush through them as I had done previously, and read every question and read every answer. And what I knew, I knew, and what I didn't know, I made educated guesses based on reading the questions and answers thoroughly. So, hooray, I passed. So it's always nice when you pass a test. Sorry, I won't tell you what my test score was. It took me 16 days to pass the ITIL V3 test, going from my first day of class. So I had classes day 1, 2, and 3. I had 3 days of classes, and I studied 2 to 3 hours each day on this test. So in addition to about 21 hours in the classroom, I definitely spent another 32 to 48 hours of study. Now, perhaps you'll be faster, perhaps you'll be slower. I tend to learn things slowly. I learn them so that I can teach them. You can get a sense of it that I am a teacher. So that's how long it took me. You may want to set aside that amount of time. So this is Dad's Learning Videos. I thank you so much for visiting today. I hope you had fun, and I had fun teaching you. I always like doing this to keep my skills fresh. Your comments and criticisms are always welcomed. And if you join YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel, which would be very nice. Just a little bit more if you stick around. My name is Richard Kraneis, and that's a unique name and a unique brand. To my best knowledge, I am the only Richard Kraneis in the U.S. or anywhere. If you meet another Richard Kraneis, please let me know. My name is my brand. So I seek to provide value to my IT customers and clients through positive collaboration using SharePoint, honesty, and a sense of goodwill. So I am a SharePoint business analyst project manager in Chicago, Illinois. And since my name is so unique, if you actually come to the end of this video, your LinkedIn inquiries are always welcomed. So thanks again for visiting. Have a wonderful day. My name is Richard Kraneis, and best wishes from Chicago, Illinois, USA. Thanks again for dropping by.